The vintage blown glass lamp was slipping. It was heavy, shaped like a giant, psychedelic mushroom, and currently slick with the sweat of a desperate woman running 10 minutes late. Isla adjusted her grip, her knuckles turning white. She was essentially a walking avalanche of texture. Under her left arm, she balanced 3 rolls of crushed velvet in varying shades of sunset orange. In her right hand, she gripped the mushroom lamp. Slung over her shoulder was a tote bag bursting with brass faucet handles and tile samples that rattled like the bones of her enemies. She checked her watch. 8:55 a.m. 5 minutes. She had 5 minutes to get from the scorching Los Angeles sidewalk, through the glass doors of aura and stone, and into the conference room before her career was officially declared dead on arrival. She elbowed the glass door open. The silence of the aura and stone lobby hit her like a physical wall. It was the kind of silence that cost money, serious money. The air conditioning was set to a crisp 68 degrees, a temperature that suggested the people who worked here did not sweat, did not panic, and certainly did not carry mushroom lamps. Isla took a breath. The air smelled of expensive nothingness. Maybe a hint of white tea and ozone, but mostly it smelled like intimidation. She scurried across the polished concrete floor, her heels clicking a frantic rhythm that echoed off the 20-foot ceilings. She was a riot of color in a sea of grays. Her skirt was a thrifted patchwork of floral prints, her blouse was electric blue. In this building, where the dress code seemed to be strictly limited to charcoal, slate, and depression, she looked like a confetti cannon that had gone off prematurely. The elevator banks were just ahead. The doors were closing. "Hold it," she shouted, or she tried to. It came out as a breathless squeak. A hand shot out, stopping the polished steel doors from sealing. It was a nice hand, manicured, pale, attached to a wrist wearing a watch that probably cost more than Isla's entire student loan balance. Isla stumbled into the elevator, the mushroom lamp wobbling dangerously. She spun around, gasping for air, her velvet rolls sliding down her rib cage. "Thank you," she wheezed. "I thought I was going to have to take the stairs, and with these tile samples I would have definitely." Her voice died in her throat. She looked up and up. Standing in the corner of the elevator, pressing himself against the wall as if to avoid contamination by her very presence, was Julian. Of course. It had to be Julian. Julian Thorne. The golden boy of aura and stone. The architect of emptiness. The man who had once famously declared that throw pillows were a sign of a cluttered mind. He was looking at her mushroom lamp with an expression of genuine physical pain. "Good morning, Isla," he said. His voice was deep, smooth, and utterly devoid of warmth. It sounded like a cello played in an ice cave. "Julian," she replied, straightening her spine and hoisting the velvet rolls higher. "You look beige." He was wearing a suit that was technically a color, but barely. It was the color of a foggy morning in London where everyone is sad. His hair was perfectly styled, not a single strand daring to rebel against the regime of his grooming product. He held a single, slim leather portfolio in his hand. No bags, no samples, no chaos. "I see you have brought the flea market with you," Julian said, his eyes flicking to the brass handles poking out of her bag. "It is called texture, Julian. You should try it sometime. It makes people feel emotions other than existential dread." "Emotions are for therapy," he countered, stepping out as the elevator dinged at the 12th floor. "Architecture is for order." He walked fast. Isla had to jog to keep up, her bag thumping against her hip. "You know," she said, breathless again, "some clients actually like their homes to look like humans live in them. Not robots with a fetish for right angles." "And some clients," Julian said, stopping abruptly at the glass doors of the main conference room, "appreciate that I do not try to suffocate them with velvet." He turned to face her. Up close, he was infuriatingly handsome. It was a symmetrical, mathematical kind of handsome. High cheekbones, sharp jawline, eyes the color of a stormy sea, cold, gray, and dangerous. You have glitter on your face, he noted. Isla instinctively wiped her cheek, smearing a streak of gold dust she hadn't realized was there. It is fairy dust. For the nursery project in Silver Lake. It looks like a craft store exploded, he said. He reached out. For a second, Isla thought he was going to help her with the lamp that was currently sliding out of her sweaty grip. Instead, he reached past her and opened the door. Ladies first, he said. It was not chivalry. It was a tactical maneuver. He wanted her to walk in first so the partners would see the chaos arriving before the calm. Isla narrowed her eyes at him. I hate you, she mouthed silently. The feeling is mutual, he mouthed back, offering her a shark-like smile. Isla took a deep breath, adjusted her load, and marched into the lion's den. The conference room at Aura and Stone was suspended in a glass box that jutted out from the side of the skyscraper. It offered a panoramic view of Los Angeles, from the smog-choked downtown to the distant, shimmering line of the ocean. Sitting at the head of the long table of black marble were the partners, Mr. Sterling and Mrs. Vane. They were the emperors of minimal luxury. Mr. Sterling was 70 years old, wore round architect glasses, and hadn't smiled since 1985. Mrs. Vane was terrifyingly chic, wearing a white power suit that looked like it would repel red wine by sheer force of will. Isla dropped her bag onto the floor. Clang, clatter, thud. The sound echoed in the silent room like a gunshot. Mr. Sterling winced. Sorry, Isla whispered. Samples, heavy. Julian glided in behind her. He placed his slim portfolio on the table. It made no sound. It essentially floated onto the surface. He sat down, crossed his legs, and folded his hands. He looked like a prince waiting for his coronation. Sit down, Miss Torres, Mrs. Vane said, her voice dry, before you break something. Isla wrestled the mushroom lamp onto the floor and collapsed into the chair opposite Julian. She was sweating. He looked as cool as a cucumber that had been stored in a cryochamber. We have called you both here, Mr. Sterling began, removing his glasses and polishing them with a cloth that looked like it cost more than Isla's car, because the firm has landed a whale. Isla perked up. A whale meant money. Money meant commissions. Commissions meant paying off the student loan shark who sent her passive-aggressive emails every month. The Sunset Infinity Hotel, Mrs. Vane announced. Isla gasped. She couldn't help it. The Sunset Infinity was the most anticipated development in California. It was going to be built into the cliffs of Malibu. It was a billion-dollar project. The client is eccentric, Mr. Sterling said, putting his glasses back on. He wants a vision. He does not want a standard luxury hotel. He wants an experience. Isla looked at Julian. His mask of indifference had cracked just a fraction. His eyes widened. He wanted this. We are assigning 2 lead designers to compete for the concept, Mrs. Vane said. Isla's stomach dropped. She knew what was coming. One of you will bring the soul, Mr. Sterling said, looking at Isla with an expression that suggested he found souls to be messy and inefficient. And one of you will bring the structure, Mrs. Vane added, nodding at Julian. You will both submit preliminary concepts in 2 weeks, Mr. Sterling said. The winner gets the lead designer credit on the project. Isla nodded eagerly. That was huge, career-making. And Mrs. Vane continued, a small, cruel smile playing on her lips. The winner will also be made the newest junior partner of Aura and Stone. The heir left the room. Partner. Isla felt dizzy. Partner meant a salary bump that would change her life. It meant no more roommates. It meant ordering the guacamole without asking how much extra it was. It meant security. She looked at Julian. He wasn't thinking about guacamole. He was thinking about legacy. His father was a famous architect who had never thought Julian was good enough. Making partner before 30 was the only way Julian could prove he wasn't just a trust fund baby with a protractor. However, Mr. Sterling said, raising a finger, there is a complication. There is always a complication, Isla thought. A plumbing catastrophe on the fourth floor has flooded the open-plan workspace, Mrs. Vane said, looking disgusted by the mere mention of plumbing. The restoration will take 2 weeks, Mr. Sterling said. We have extremely limited desk space available in the interim. Isla frowned. What did that mean? It means, Mrs. Vane said, enjoying this way too much, that until the renovation is complete, the two of you will be sharing the sample room. Isla choked. The sample room, Julian actually spoke. Excuse me, Mrs. Vane, did you say the sample room? That is a closet. It is 40 square feet. It is a cozy, creative incubator, Mr. Sterling corrected. You will work there together, starting now, but… Isla started. No buts, Mrs. Vane snapped. We want to see how you handle pressure. We want to see how you deal with opposing viewpoints. If you cannot survive 2 weeks in a room with each other, you certainly cannot handle a billion-dollar client. Dismissed. The sample room was not a room. It was a crime against humanity. It was located in the basement level next to the janitorial supplies. It had no windows. The ventilation system hummed with a sound like a dying lawnmower. The walls were lined with shelves floor to ceiling, packed with fabric rolls, stone tiles, wood veneers, and paint chips. In the center of the room sat one single, medium-sized table. Isla stood in the doorway staring at it. There is no way, she said. Julian stood behind her. I can feel my pores clogging already, he muttered. The humidity in here is unregulated. Isla walked in and dumped her bag on the table. It took up 60% of the available surface area. Julian walked in and stared at her bag. Move it, he said. Make me, she replied. Julian sighed. A long, suffering sigh that seemed to deflate his entire posture. Isla, we have to work. Move your debris to your side. My side, Isla laughed. She grabbed a roll of blue painter's tape from the shelf. She ripped off a long strip. The sound was satisfying. ZZZZZT. She slapped the tape down the exact center of the table. There, she said. That is the border. This side is the Republic of Color and Joy. That side is the kingdom of sad beige. Do not cross the line, Julian. Julian looked at the tape. He looked at the crooked line she had made. He reached out, peeled the tape up, and reapplied it, perfectly straight, parallel to the edges of the table. If we are going to do this, we are going to do it with precision, he said. He sat down on his side. He took out a sanitizing wipe and cleaned his half of the table. Then he placed his laptop down. He aligned his phone exactly 2 inches from the laptop. He placed a single black pen next to the phone. Isla sat down on her side. She dumped her bag out. Brass handles clattered. Velvet swatches spilled over. A half-eaten bag of almonds fell out. Julian flinched. Are you going to eat those? He asked, eyeing the almonds like they were radioactive waste. Yes, Isla said, popping one into her mouth. Crunch. Loudly. I am trying to concentrate, Julian said, opening a blank CAD file. Isla opened her laptop. Her desktop background was a high-definition photo of a jungle. Julian's was solid gray. So, Isla said, leaning back in her creaky chair. The Sunset Infinity Hotel. What is your pitch going to be? A concrete box where people go to forget they have feelings. My pitch, Julian said without looking up, his fingers flying across the keyboard, will be a sanctuary of calm, minimalist elegance, negative space. Negative space, Isla snorted. That is just a fancy word for empty. The client wants an experience, Julian. He wants drama. He wants texture. He wants class, Julian countered. Not a circus. Isla grabbed a swatch of emerald green velvet and rubbed it against her cheek. You are just mad because you don't know how to have fun. You are afraid of color. It intimidates you. Color is a crutch for bad design, Julian said. If the structure is perfect, you do not need decoration. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the ventilation system the only sound. The air in the small room was getting warmer. Isla could smell him. It was annoying how good he smelled, crisp, clean, like cedarwood and money. She kicked off her heels under the table. Oh, Julian yelped. Isla froze. Did I kick you? You kicked my shin, he said, glaring at her. "Sorry," she said, not sounding sorry at all. "My legs are long. This table is small. Keep your limbs on your side of the demilitarized zone," he snapped. Isla smirked. She grabbed the mushroom lamp and placed it on the corner of her desk. She plugged it in. It glowed with a warm, amber light. It cast psychedelic shadows on the walls. "Turn that off," Julian said. "It is distracting." "It is ambience," Isla said. "It looks like a fungus," Julian said. "It is organic," Isla retorted. They glared at each other. The blue tape line on the desk seemed to vibrate with the tension. This was going to be a long 2 weeks. By 2 p.m., the oxygen supply in the sample room felt like it was depleted by 50%. Isla was hungry. She had finished her almonds. She dug into her bag and pulled out a container of leftover curry. She opened the lid. The smell, delicious, spicy, pungent cumin and turmeric, filled the tiny space instantly. Julian stopped typing. He closed his eyes. He took a shallow breath. "Isla," he said, his voice tight. "Yes," she said, holding a forkful of yellow rice. "Tell me you did not just open a container of curry in a windowless closet." "It is lunchtime, Julian. Humans eat lunch." "Not in here," he said, looking at her with horror. "That smell will seep into the fabric samples. The client will think we are upholstering their furniture with takeout. It smells like love," Isla said. "You wouldn't understand." Julian stood up. "I cannot work like this." "Where are you going?" "To tell on me." "I am going to get coffee," he said, adjusting his suit jacket. "Because if I do not ingest caffeine immediately, I might strangle you with that velvet." "Can you get me one?" she asked, blinking her big brown eyes at him. "No," he said, "please. I will put the lid back on the curry." Julian hesitated at the door. He looked at her. He looked at the curry. He looked at the mushroom lamp. "Black coffee?" he asked. "Oat milk latte with 3 pumps of vanilla," she said. He stared at her. "Of course, you are a dessert person." He walked out, slamming the door. Isla smiled. She put the lid back on her curry. She looked at his side of the desk, perfectly organized, sterile, boring. She reached into her bag and pulled out a handful of glittery gold star stickers she used for mood boards. She looked at the door. He would be gone for at least 10 minutes. Quickly, quietly, she peeled a sticker off. She stuck it on the bottom of his mouse, then another one on the back of his stapler. Then, for the piece de resistance, she took a tiny, neon pink sticky note and drew a smiley face on it. She stuck it to the underside of his expensive leather portfolio. She sat back, looking innocent. The war had begun, and she was going to win, not with structure but with chaos. When Julian returned, he was carrying 2 cups. He placed a cardboard cup on her side of the line. "Vanilla latte. Oat milk. It is basically hot ice cream," he muttered. Isla took a sip. It was perfect. "Thank you, Julian. You have a heart after all. It is small and shriveled, but it is there." He sat down. He took a sip of his black coffee. He reached for his mouse. He moved it. It didn't track properly. The cursor jumped on the screen. He frowned. He lifted the mouse. He saw the gold star sticker covering the sensor. He slowly peeled it off. He held it up, looking at Isla. "Really?" he asked. Isla shrugged, sipping her latte. "I thought your equipment needed some sparkle." Julian stuck the star on the edge of the table. "You are 5 years old." "I am 27 and I am the future partner of this firm," she said. "In your dreams, Torah's." He went back to work, but Isla noticed something. He didn't throw the star away. He left it there on the edge of the table, a tiny speck of gold in his gray world. Suddenly, the door flew open. It was Sarah, the assistant to the creative director. She looked harried. "Package for you," she said, tossing a long cardboard tube onto the table. It rolled across the line, violating the treaty. Isla grabbed one end. Julian grabbed the other. "What is it?" Isla asked. "It's marked priority," Julian said, reading the label, "from the Copenhagen branch." "Copenhagen," Isla said. "We don't have a Copenhagen branch. We have consultants in Copenhagen," Julian said. "The Scandinavian design team. They are legendary." They opened the tube. Julian pulled out a set of blueprints. They unrolled them on the table, weighing down the corners with tile samples. Isla gasped. The drawings were perfect. It was a design for a hotel lobby. It was minimalist like Julian's style, but it had a warmth to it. The lines were curved, organic. The lighting was integrated into the walls. It was breathtaking. Who did this? Isla whispered. Julian looked at the signature block in the bottom right corner. It was empty. No name, just a logo, a stylized geometric shape, and the project code name, Echo. Echo, Isla said. Who is Echo? I don't know, Julian said, his eyes scanning the technical details, but look at these load-bearing columns. They are hidden inside the glass structure. This is engineering genius. Isla touched the paper and the texture. Look at the material notes. Reclaimed volcanic ash concrete. That is brilliant. They looked at each other. For the first time all day, the hostility was gone, replaced by a shared, terrifying realization. This is better than my idea, Isla said quietly. It is better than mine too, Julian admitted. Sarah stuck her head back in the door. Oh, Mr. Sterling said you should study those. That is the benchmark. That is what you are competing against. She left. Isla looked at Julian. We are not just competing against each other, are we? No, Julian said, his face pale. There is a third player, someone in Copenhagen, and they are good, Isla said. They are perfect, Julian corrected. He looked at the blueprints, then at Isla. We have a problem, Torres. Isla looked at the mystery plans. The Echo design was everything she wasn't, disciplined, restrained. And it was everything Julian wasn't, fluid, organic. It was the perfect enemy. Isla grabbed her vanilla latte. Okay, she said. New plan, what? Julian asked. We find out who Echo is and we destroy them. Julian looked at her. He looked at the chaos on her side of the desk. He looked at the determination in her eyes. A slow smile spread across his face. It wasn't his shark smile. It was something else. Something like respect. I do enjoy a good investigation, he said. But first, Isla said, pointing at his side of the desk, you have to admit that the gold star looks good. Julian looked at the sticker. Let's not get carried away, he said. He turned back to his computer, but he didn't peel the star off. Isla smiled. She opened her laptop. The game had changed. The battlefield was no longer just this tiny room. It was global. And for the first time, Isla didn't feel like she was fighting alone. She was fighting with the enemy. And God help whoever Echo was, because they had just unleashed the combined force of chaos and order. Isla typed into her search bar, Aura and Stone Copenhagen personnel list. 0 results. She looked at Julian. He was typing too. Project Echo. Access denied. Julian looked at her. Locked. Mine too, she said. The mystery deepened. The air in the closet felt thicker, heavier. Isla looked at the mushroom lamp. It flickered once. Maybe, just maybe, this was going to be the most interesting 2 weeks of her life. The ventilation system in the sample room did not just fail. It died with a shuddering metallic cough that sounded like a robot giving up on life. Isla looked up from her laptop. Did you hear that? Julian did not look up. He was currently arranging virtual furniture in a 3D model of the hotel lobby. His focus was terrifying. Hear what? He asked. The sound of our oxygen supply being cut off. Isla said. She fanned herself with a tile sample. It was heavy slate, so it was more of a workout than a relief. The temperature in the closet began to rise, slowly at first, then with the aggressive determination of a sauna. Isla checked her watch. It was 11 p.m. They had been in the box for 14 hours. Julian, she said, it is hot. Ignore it, he said. Mind over matter. Isla looked at him. He was still wearing his suit jacket. His tie was still knotted tight against his throat. He had not broken a sweat. He looked like a wax figure. Are you a lizard? She asked. Do you regulate your body temperature using sheer arrogance? Julian finally stopped clicking his mouse. He turned to look at her. I am professional, Isla. Professionals do not complain about the environment. They adapt. He reached for his water bottle. It was empty. He frowned. Isla watched him. She saw a single, tiny bead of sweat form at his temple. It rolled down his cheek. Aha, she pointed a finger at him. You are sweating. The ice prince melts. Julian wiped the sweat away quickly. "It is getting warm," he admitted. "Warm?" Isla laughed. "It is the surface of the sun in here." She stood up. She took off her cardigan. She was wearing a sleeveless blouse underneath. Julian looked away instantly. He stared intently at the shelf of beige linen samples. "You can take your jacket off, you know," Isla said, sitting back down. "The fashion police are not going to raid us." "I am fine," Julian said. 10 minutes later, he took off his jacket. He folded it neatly, perfectly square, and placed it on top of a stack of wood veneers. 10 minutes after that, he loosened his tie. Just an inch. Isla watched him out of the corner of her eye. It was like seeing a statue come to life. Seeing Julian Thorne disheveled was strangely fascinating. It was like finding out Superman wore mismatched socks. "My stomach is making noises," Isla announced. "I can hear it," Julian said. "It sounds like a whale song." "I need food," she said. "Real food, not almond." Julian looked at his watch. 11:30 p.m. Everything is closed. "This is Los Angeles, Julian. Nothing is ever closed." He sighed. He picked up his phone. "Thai?" Isla perked up. "Yes, pad Thai, extra spicy, and spring rolls, and maybe a mango sticky rice." Julian tapped on his screen. His fingers were long, elegant. "Checking out," he murmured. "Delivery in 40 minutes." Isla leaned back, closing her eyes. "You are a lifesaver. I was about to start eating the fabric samples. I bet that velvet tastes like dust and sadness." They worked in silence while they waited. The heat grew heavier. Isla pulled her hair up into a messy bun, using a pencil to hold it in place. "So," Julian said, his voice cutting through the humid air. "Why design?" Isla opened one eye. "What? Why interior design? Why this industry? You seem—" He gestured at her chaotic side of the table. "Unsuited for the corporate structure." Isla laughed. "You mean I am loud and messy?" "I mean you are vibrant," he said, "and this world is often gray." Isla looked at him. Was that a compliment from Julian? "I like spaces that make people feel safe," she said quietly. "Safe?" "Yeah." She picked up a brass handle, turning it over in her hands. "When I was 19, my parents lost our house. It was during the recession. One day we had a home, the next day we had boxes." Julian stopped typing. He turned his chair to face her fully. "I didn't know that," he said. "We moved into a small apartment," Isla continued. "It was ugly. Beige walls, gray carpet. It felt temporary. It felt like failure." She looked at the brass handle, seeing her own reflection distorted in the metal. "So I decorated it, with thrift store finds, with paint. With whatever I could afford, I made it feel like a home again. I realized that design isn't just about pretty things. It is about dignity. It is about control when everything else is falling apart." She looked up. Julian was watching her with an intensity that made her breath hitch. His gray eyes were soft, unguarded. "That is admirable," he said. "What about you?" she asked, deflecting. "Why are you here? You could be doing anything. You are a thorn. Your family owns half the skyline." "That is exactly why," he said. His voice was hard again. He picked up his pen, spinning it between his fingers. "My father is a great architect, a visionary, but he is also a tyrant. He believes that emotion has no place in design. He believes that if a building is beautiful, it doesn't matter if the people inside it are miserable." He looked at the pen. "I want to prove him wrong. I want to build things that are perfect, yes, but things that work, things that last. I want to succeed without his name opening the door for me. That is why I use my mother's maiden name here. Nobody knows I am his son." Isla stared at him. "You are undercover. I am independent," he corrected. Isla smiled. It was a soft smile. "So the Prince of Silence has daddy issues, and the Queen of Chaos has poverty trauma. We are quite a pair." Julian smiled back. It was a real smile. It reached his eyes. "We are a disaster," he said. The door opened. The delivery guy stood there looking confused. "Delivery for Julian." Julian stood up. He grabbed the bag. He set it on the table. He unpacked the containers. "One pad Thai, no peanuts." Isla froze. She looked at him. "How did you know?" she asked. "Know what?" Julian asked, opening his own container of green curry. That I am allergic to peanuts. I never told you that. Julian shrugged. He broke apart a pair of chopsticks. Last year at the office Christmas party, you asked the caterer 3 times if the satay sauce had peanuts. You didn't eat anything from the buffet until they brought out the cheese platter. Isla stared at him. You remembered that? I observe details, Isla. It is my job. He handed her a pair of chopsticks. Eat, before the sticky rice gets cold. Isla took the chopsticks. Her heart was doing something strange. It was thumping against her ribs, a frantic, uneven rhythm. He remembered. The man who pretended she was invisible, who treated her like a nuisance. He had been watching. She took a bite of pad thai. It was delicious. Thank you, she whispered. Julian didn't look up from his curry. You are welcome. They ate on the floor, legs crossed. The blueprints of the Echo project rolled up on the table above them like a looming storm cloud. For an hour, in that sweltering closet, they weren't rivals. They were just 2 tired people sharing a meal in the bunker, waiting for the war to restart in the morning. 2 days later, the closet smelled less like curry and more like despair. The Echo blueprints were taped to the wall now. Julian had analyzed them down to the micron. Isla had color-coded them with sticky notes. They were no closer to beating the mystery rival. Then the email came from Mrs. Vane. Subject: site visit Joshua Tree Quarry. Torres Thorn, the client wants to use local stone. Go to the Black Rock Quarry in Joshua Tree. Inspect the samples. Bring back a recommendation. Do not fail. Road trip, Isla said, reading the email over Julian's shoulder. Julian groaned. Joshua Tree is 3 hours away. In traffic. I will make a playlist, Isla threatened. Julian's car was exactly what Isla expected. It was a black German SUV. The interior was black leather. The dashboard was black. It looked like the Batmobile if Batman was an accountant. Isla threw her bag into the back seat. It landed with a heavy thud. Do not scratch the leather, Julian said, wincing. She climbed into the passenger seat. She was wearing oversized sunglasses and a vintage silk scarf wrapped around her hair like a 1950s movie star. Let's ride, she said. Julian started the car. The engine purred. It was a silent, expensive purr. Rules of the car, Julian said as they pulled out of the parking garage. 1. No eating. 2. No shoes on the dashboard. 3. I control the temperature. 4. I control the music. Isla laughed. Cute. You think you have authority. She connected her phone to the Bluetooth before he could stop her. Sudden, loud synthesizer pop music exploded from the high-end speakers. Isla started dancing in her seat. Julian gripped the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. This is going to be a long drive, he muttered. 2 hours later, they were in the desert. The landscape had changed. The concrete sprawl of Los Angeles gave way to the alien, jagged rocks and twisted trees of the Mojave. It was beautiful, stark, empty. Isla had stopped singing. She was looking out the window, mesmerized. It looks like the moon, she said. It is peaceful, Julian agreed. No clutter, just geology. See, you do like nature. Nature is messy, Julian. Look at those rocks. They are chaotic. They are structural, he argued. They are formed by erosion and pressure. It is physics. They turned off the main highway onto a dirt road. The GPS indicated the quarry was 10 miles ahead. The sky, which had been a brilliant, blinding blue, suddenly turned a bruised purple. Isla looked up. That is a big cloud. Desert storms move fast, Julian said, speeding up. We need to get to the quarry, get the samples, and get out. The wind picked up. Dust swirled across the road, coating the pristine black car in a layer of fine grit. Then the rain started. It didn't start like normal rain. It started like a bucket being overturned. Fat, heavy drops slammed into the windshield. The sky opened up. Lightning cracked, turning the purple sky white for a split second. Flash flood warning, Isla's phone chirped. Julian, turn around, she said. I can make it, he said. We are close. The road ahead was disappearing under a sheet of brown water. Julian, he slammed on the brakes. The car skidded. It slid sideways in the mud. Isla grabbed the dashboard handle. The car came to a stop, facing the wrong way, the back wheels dangerously close to a ditch. Silence inside the car. Outside, the roar of the storm was deafening. Julian let out a breath. Okay, maybe we don't make it. He tried to restart the car. The wheels spun. Whine, whine, whine. We are stuck. He said, great, Isla said, stuck in the desert, in a flash flood. This is how horror movies start. He looked at his phone. No signal. Isla looked at hers. One bar. Wait, she said. I saw a sign back there, a mile back. Celestial glamping. Glamping, Julian asked. As in glamour camping. It is better than dying in a ditch, she said. They grabbed their coats. Julian grabbed an umbrella from the door panel. Of course he had an umbrella. It was sleek and black. Run, he said. They ran. The rain was cold. The wind whipped Isla's scarf around her face. They trudged through the mud, their expensive shoes ruined. After 20 minutes of misery, they saw it. A white canvas dome glowing from within. It sat on a wooden platform raised above the flooding ground. They scrambled up the steps. Julian banged on the door. No answer. He tried the handle. It was unlocked. They tumbled inside. It was not a tent. It was a hotel room with canvas walls. There was a king-sized bed with white linens, a cowhide rug, a wood-burning stove in the corner. Isla shivered, her teeth chattering. It is freezing. Julian locked the door behind them. The wind battered the canvas, making the whole structure shudder. He looked around. There was a stack of firewood. He took off his soaked jacket. I will start a fire. You know how to start a fire? Isla asked, hugging herself. I was a Boy Scout, he said, before I discovered minimalism. He knelt by the stove. He was efficient. Within minutes, a flame crackled. The warmth began to fill the small space. Isla sat on the rug close to the fire. She was shaking. Julian turned to her. You are blue. I am fine, she stuttered. You are hypothermic, he said. He went to the bed and pulled off the thick wool blanket. He wrapped it around her shoulders. He sat down next to her. The storm raged outside, but inside, in the glow of the fire, it was quiet. Isla looked at him. His hair was wet, falling over his forehead. His white shirt was translucent, sticking to his skin. You are ruining your Italian leather shoes, she whispered. They can be replaced, he said softly. He rubbed her arms through the blanket, trying to generate friction, trying to warm her up. Isla leaned into him. She couldn't help it. He was warm. He was solid. Better, he asked. A little. The silence stretched. It wasn't awkward anymore. It was heavy, charged. Isla looked at the fire. You know, she said, her voice low. I used to think you were a robot. I know, Julian said, but you are not. You are just protected like a building, he said, a fortress. Fortresses are lonely, Julian. He looked at her. His eyes were dark in the firelight. Sometimes, he said, he reached out. His fingers brushed a wet lock of hair from her cheek. His hand lingered there. His thumb traced the line of her jaw. Isla's breath caught in her throat. The air between them crackled, hotter than the fire. Julian, she whispered. Isla, he murmured. He leaned in. His face was inches from hers. She could smell the rain on his skin. She could feel the heat radiating from him. Her eyes fluttered shut. She tilted her head up. This was it. The moment the chaos met the structure. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Julian's phone, lying on the floor between them, lit up. The screen was bright in the dim room. Isla opened her eyes. She looked down. A text message. From unknown number preview. Copenhagen files received. Excellent work, Julian. Proceed with phase 2. Isla froze. The warmth drained out of her body instantly, replaced by icy shock. She pulled back. Isla, Julian said, confused. She stared at the phone, then she stared at him. Copenhagen files, she asked. Her voice was trembling, but not from the cold. Julian looked down. He saw the message. His eyes widened. Wait. Isla, I don't know what that is. You don't know? She stood up, the blanket falling off her shoulders. You don't know? It says excellent work, Julian. Isla, please, you are echo, she said. The realization hit her like a physical blow, of course. That is why the designs are so perfect. That is why you are so obsessed with structure. You are working with the Copenhagen team. No, Julian stood up. Isla, listen to me. I have never seen that number before. You are playing both sides, she shouted, backing away from him. You are sitting in that closet with me, eating my curry, listening to my sad stories about my parents, and all the while you are sabotaging me. Isla, stop, think. Why would I do that? Because you are a thorn, she cried. Because winning isn't enough for you. You have to dominate. You have to prove to your daddy that you can crush everyone, even the girl with the student loans. She grabbed her bag. Where are you going? Julian stepped toward her. It is storming. I would rather walk in a hurricane than stay in this tent with a liar, she spat. She didn't leave the tent, that would be suicide, but she marched to the far side of the room. She sat on the edge of the bed, turning her back to him. Isla, Julian pleaded. Don't talk to me, she said. Stay on your side of the room. Draw a line if you have to. Just don't come near me. Julian stood by the fire. He looked at his phone. He looked at Isla's rigid back. He ran a hand through his wet hair. The message sat on his screen. A digital grenade that had just blown up the only real thing he had felt in years. He didn't reply to the number. He just stared at it. Who was doing this? And why? Outside, the thunder rolled, echoing the sound of a breaking heart. The drive back to Los Angeles the next morning was silent, not the comfortable silence of the night before. This was a suffocating, heavy silence, the kind of silence that made your ears ring. The storm had passed, leaving the desert scrubbed clean and bright. But inside the black SUV, the atmosphere was toxic. Isla stared out the window. She had her sunglasses on, hiding her puffy eyes. Julian drove with both hands on the wheel at 10 and 2. His jaw was clenched so tight a muscle ticked in his cheek. He had tried to explain 3 times. Isla, I swear I don't know who sent that. Isla, look at the area code. It is a spoofed number. Isla, please. She had ignored him every time. She just turned the volume up on the radio. But this time she didn't play pop music. She played nothing, just static. When they pulled into the parking garage of Aura and Stone, Isla was out of the car before the engine fully stopped. Isla, Julian called after her. She didn't look back. She marched toward the elevator, her heels clicking like gunshots on the concrete. She went straight to the sample room. She ripped the blue tape off the table. She didn't replace it. She just cleared her stuff off the table entirely. She began packing her bag. What are you doing? Julian asked, standing in the doorway. He looked wrecked. His suit was wrinkled from the night in the tent. He hadn't shaved. I am moving, she said. You can't, Mrs. Vane said. I don't care what Mrs. Vane said. I will work in the hallway. I will work in the bathroom. I will work on the roof. But I will not work in this box with you. She shoved her laptop into her bag. You played me, Julian. You made me trust you. You made me feel things. And it was all just a strategy to get inside my head, to see my weakness. Isla, that is not true. You won, okay, she said, tears pricking her eyes behind the sunglasses. You are the superior designer. You are the grand strategist. Congratulations. You broke me. Are you happy? She pushed past him. Julian stood there. He watched her storm down the hallway. He looked at the empty closet, at the spot on the floor where they had eaten curry, at the mushroom lamp she had left behind in her haste. He walked over to the table. He picked up his phone. He looked at the text message again. Proceed with phase 2. He narrowed his eyes. He wasn't going to let this go. He was a thorn, and thorns didn't get played. He sat down at his computer. He opened the terminal. He wasn't just an architect. He was a perfectionist, and perfectionists knew how to dig. He typed in a command. He was going to trace that number. He was going to find out who Echo was, and then he was going to burn them to the ground. Isla sat in the break room on the 12th floor. It was a sterile space with a coffee machine that cost more than a Honda Civic. She had her laptop open on the high-top table. She was trying to work, but she couldn't focus. All she could see was Julian's face in the firelight. The way his thumb had felt on her jaw. Liar. She wiped her eyes angrily. Focus, Torres. You have 3 days to render a lobby that beats the Danish Wonder Boy. She opened the server to access the shared texture library. She scrolled through the folders. Stone, wood, fabric, Project Echo. Wait, she paused. The folder Project Echo was there. It hadn't been there yesterday, or maybe it had been hidden. She clicked on it. Access denied. She gritted her teeth. She looked around. The office was bustling. Everyone was busy being important. Isla had a secret weapon. It wasn't design, it was social engineering. She walked over to the IT desk. Gary was there. Gary was 22, wore anime t-shirts, and had a massive crush on Isla because she once brought him a cupcake. Gary, Isla said, leaning on his desk. Hey Isla, Gary blushed, you look intense today. I am in the zone, Gary. Listen, I am having trouble accessing a folder. Mr. Sterling needs the files like yesterday. Oh, which one? Project Echo. It says access denied, but I am the lead on it. Stupid glitches, right? Gary typed on his keyboard. Weird. Let me check the permissions. He frowned. Isla, he said, that folder isn't restricted by user. It is restricted by origin. What does that mean? It means the files aren't being uploaded by a person. They are being generated by the system. Generated? Yeah, look, he turned his screen. Isla squinted at the code. Source, AIDA core processor, ADA, artificial intelligence design algorithm. Gary read. It is a beta program. The firm installed it on the server farm in, let me check, Copenhagen. Isla felt the blood drain from her face. Copenhagen isn't a team, she whispered. It is a computer, Gary said. A server farm. Isla stared at him. It's an AI. Echo is an AI. And the text message. The one on Julian's phone. Copenhagen files received. Excellent work, Julian. If Julian was working with the AI, why would the system text him? The system doesn't text. People text unless the text wasn't from the AI. It was from someone pretending to be the handler. Isla's mind raced. If Julian was working with the AI, he wouldn't need a text confirming receipt. He would just see it on his screen. The text was a plant. It was a setup to make her distrust him, to split them up. Isla grabbed Gary's arm. Gary, can you see who sent a text to Julian Thorne's work phone last night at 9:45 p.m.? Gary looked nervous. That is a privacy violation, Isla. Gary, for the love of God, I will bake you cupcakes every week for a year. Gary typed. Internal relay, he muttered. It came from the executive office relay. The executive office. Sterling and Vane. Isla let go of Gary's arm. They are manipulating us, she breathed. She turned and ran. She ran back to the basement. She burst into the sample room. Julian was there. He was surrounded by screens. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. Isla, he stood up. Get out. I am busy destroying a career. Who's yours? She asked. No, he said, his eyes wild. I traced the number, Isla. It is a burner routed through the partner's private server. I know, she said. Gary told me. Julian froze. Gary told you. Isla walked into the room. She crossed the invisible line. She walked right up to him. Echo isn't a person, Julian. It is an AI. It is an algorithm. Julian stared at her. An AI, yes. The Copenhagen branch is a server farm. They are feeding our data into it. Julian looked at his screens. He pulled up the blueprints again. He zoomed in. Look at the geometry, he whispered. It is perfect. Too perfect. No human error. No wasted space. He looked at Isla. They are using us, he said. They are making us fight. To train the machine, Isla finished. You provide the structure. I provide the chaos. The machine learns both, and then they fire us, Julian said, and replace us with a piece of software that doesn't ask for a salary or complain about the AC. They stood there. The silence this time wasn't heavy. It was electric with rage. Isla looked at Julian. I thought you were the enemy. She said, I thought you were just annoying, he said. I am annoying, she smiled weakly, but I am also human. Julian stepped closer. I didn't send that text, Isla. I know, she said. I am sorry I yelled at you in the tent. I am sorry I didn't chase you into the rain, he said. He reached out and took her hand. His grip was tight. So, he said, we have a billionaire client coming in 24 hours. We have a set of AI blueprints that are technically superior to anything we can draw individually. And our bosses are trying to turn us into batteries for their robot. Yes, Isla said, that sums it up. What do we do? Julian asked. Isla looked at the mushroom lamp. She looked at the rolls of velvet. Then she looked at Julian's perfect straight lines. We stop competing, she said. We collaborate. No, she grinned. That is too corporate. We fuse, she said. We make something the AI can't make. Which is? Something that makes no sense, Isla said. Something that is structurally impossible but emotionally undeniable. We give them a heartbeat. Julian looked at her. He looked at her hand in his. Okay, he said, let's break the algorithm. He pulled a fresh sheet of paper. Where do we start? Isla grabbed a handful of markers. We start with the lobby, she said. And we are going to need a lot more velvet. Julian didn't flinch. Bring it on, he said. The blue tape was the first casualty. Isla ripped it off the table in one aggressive motion. The sound was like a zipper opening on a new reality. She balled up the sticky blue mess and threw it into the corner. No borders, she declared. Julian nodded. He rolled up his sleeves. Not the neat, two-fold roll he usually did. He pushed them up to his elbows, uncaring of the wrinkles. No borders, he agreed. They had 12 hours. The sample room transformed. It was no longer a closet, it was a reactor core. Julian moved his laptop to the center. Isla dumped her entire bag of samples, brass, velvet, reclaimed wood, jagged slate, onto the table surrounding the computer like a fortress of texture. Okay, Julian said, his eyes scanning the screen. The AI prioritizes efficiency. It minimizes waste. It seeks the shortest path between 2 points. So we do the opposite, Isla said. We make the path meandering. We make the guest get lost, but in a good way, like wandering through a forest. Julian's fingers flew across the keyboard. A forest, he muttered, but a structural forest, columns that branch out. Not just vertical supports, but organic fractals. He pulled up the CAD model. He started deleting the straight lines. Isla watched him. For the first time, she saw how his mind worked. It wasn't just cold logic, it was rhythm. He was conducting an orchestra of geometry. Make the ceiling vaulted, she said, leaning over his shoulder like a cathedral. But instead of stone, use that woven bamboo texture. Julian didn't argue, he inputted the material. The render updated. The light filtered through the virtual bamboo, casting soft, dappled shadows on the floor. It's inefficient, Julian whispered, staring at it. The material cost is 30% higher. The installation time is double. Does it make you feel something? Isla asked. Julian looked at the screen, the light, the shadow. It feels quiet, he said, like taking a deep breath. That is the point, Isla said. The AI knows cost. It doesn't know breath. They work through the night. At 3 a.m. the coffee ran out. Isla was lying on the floor, holding up fabric swatches to the flickering fluorescent light. Julian, she said, if we lose, if we get fired. We will get fired, Julian said calmly. Even if we win, we are rebelling against the design parameters. They want the AI model. We are giving them a human mess. Isla sat up. She looked at him. Are you scared? Julian stopped typing. He looked at the chaos on the table. He looked at the gold star sticker still stuck to his mouse. I have spent my whole life being scared of making a mistake, he said, of being imperfect, of being messy. He looked at her. But tonight, this is the most fun I have ever had. Isla smiled. It was a tired, delirious smile. Me too. By 6 a.m. the design was finished. It was named the Grotto. It wasn't a hotel lobby. It was a cavern of light and water. It used raw, uncut stone. It had a waterfall that doubled as a cooling system. It had mismatched furniture sourced from vintage markets. It had deep, dark corners for secrets and bright, open spaces for joy. It was structurally sound. Julian made sure of that. But it was wild. Isla made sure of that. It was beautiful. Julian hit save. He looked at Isla. She had fallen asleep with her head on a roll of moss-green velvet. A streak of ink was on her cheek. He didn't wake her up. He just watched her for a moment, the glow of the screen illuminating his face. He reached out and gently brushed a stray hair from her forehead. Ready or not, he whispered. Here comes the chaos. The main conference room at 9 a.m. was a Shark Tank. Mr. Sterling and Mrs. Vane sat at the head of the table. They looked rested, hydrated, and ready to feast on the souls of junior employees. To their right sat the client, Magnus. He was a tech billionaire who had made his fortune in apps that nobody understood but everyone used. He was wearing a hoodie that probably cost $5,000 and sunglasses indoors. He was chewing gum. "So," Magnus said, leaning back in his chair, "show me the future." Mrs. Vane smiled. It was a predatory smile. "First," she said, "we present the concept from our international team, Project Echo." She pressed a button, the screens descended, the lights dimmed. The AI design appeared. It was impressive. It was a gleaming tower of glass and white steel. The lobby was vast, empty, and pristine. It looked like the waiting room for a very expensive spaceship. "It is clean," Magnus said. "It is optimized," Mr. Sterling said. "Zero waste, maximum energy efficiency. It is the pinnacle of modern luxury." Magnus nodded. He didn't look excited. He looked bored. "And now," Mrs. Vane said, her voice dropping a few degrees, "we have the internal proposal from our junior associates, Miss Torres and Mr. Thorne." She gestured to them with a wave of her hand that suggested they were a waste of time. Isla stood up. She was wearing her lucky vintage blazer. It was bright yellow. Julian stood up next to her. He was wearing his suit but no tie. His top button was undone. It was a subtle act of rebellion, but for him it was practically punk rock. Isla plugged in the laptop. "Ladies, gentlemen, Magnus," she began. Her voice shook for a second, then steadied. "You asked for a vision. You asked for an experience." She clicked the remote. The screen changed. The grotto appeared. A collective gasp went through the room. It didn't look like a render. It looked like a painting. The colors were rich ochre, emerald, deep indigo. The textures popped off the screen. Julian stepped forward. "The modern world is loud," he said. His voice was deep, commanding. "It is fast. It is digital. We are constantly bombarded by perfection, by algorithms that tell us what to like, what to buy, who to be." He looked at the AI design on the other screen. "Project Echo offers you a reflection of that world. Cold, efficient, perfect." Isla stepped in, seamless. "But a hotel shouldn't be a reflection," she said. "It should be an escape." She clicked the remote again. The virtual camera flew through the lobby, past the waterfall into the cozy velvet alcoves. "We didn't design this for efficiency," Isla said. "We designed it for humanity. We designed it for the person who had a bad day and needs to touch something real. For the lovers who want to hide in a corner. For the traveler who wants to remember they are on Earth, not in a server room." Julian picked up the narrative. "Structurally, it uses local stone, not imported steel. It breathes, it ages. It will look better in 50 years than it does today because it will have patina. It will have stories." Isla looked at Magnus. "You can build a machine," she said, "or you can build a memory." Silence. Absolute silence in the glass box. Mr. Sterling looked furious. He was cleaning his glasses aggressively. Mrs. Vane looked like she had swallowed a lemon. "That design," Mr. Sterling said, his voice tight, "is inefficient. The cost of those materials is astronomical. The maintenance on a living waterfall. It is impossible," Mrs. Vane added. Magnus took off his sunglasses. He looked at the screen. He looked at Isla and Julian. He stopped chewing his gum. "It is," he started. Isla held her breath. "It is exactly what I wanted," Magnus said. He slammed his hand on the table. "I love it. The AI stuff, boring, seen it. Every airport in Dubai looks like that, but this is rock and roll, this is sex, this is art." He pointed at Isla and Julian. "I want this, and I want them to build it." Isla felt a surge of joy so strong she almost passed out. She grabbed Julian's arm. He was smiling, a real wide smile. However, Mrs. Vane cut in. Her voice was ice. "Magnus, we are delighted you like the aesthetic. But as we discussed, the budget for the Echo model is significantly lower, and the reliability—" "I don't care about the budget," Magnus waved his hand. "I am worth $40 billion. Build the grotto." He stood up. "Send me the contracts. I want ground broken in 3 months." He walked out. The door closed behind him. Isla and Julian turned to the partners. They had done it. They had won. "Well," Mr. Sterling said. He didn't look happy. He looked calculating. "Sit down," Mrs. Vane said. They sat. "Congratulations," Mr. Sterling said. "You have secured the client." But Mrs. Vane said, opening a leather folder, "We cannot allow two junior associates to lead $1 billion project. It is too risky." So Mr. Sterling continued, "We are going to proceed with the echo construction methods. We will skin the AI structure with your aesthetic." "What?" Julian asked. "You are going to gut the design. We are going to optimize it," Mrs. Vane said. "The AI will do the heavy lifting. You too." She slid a contract across the black marble table. "You too will be promoted." Isla looked at the paper. "Position, Quality Assurance Manager's Echo Division." "Quality Assurance?" Isla asked. "You will oversee the AI," Mr. Sterling said. "You will teach it to be quirkier. You will feed it your ideas and it will execute them efficiently." "You want us to be janitors for the robot," Julian said. His voice was low. "We want to pay you a lot of money," Mrs. Vane said. "Look at the salary." Isla looked. $250,000 a year. It was enough to pay off her loans in 2 years. It was enough to buy a house. It was safety. It was everything she had panicked about in the closet. Plus a signing bonus, Mr. Sterling added, and full partnership track in 5 years. Isla looked at Julian. He was looking at the contract. He was a thorn. This was the path to the top. This was what he was supposed to want. But then he looked at her. He looked at her mismatched blazer. He looked at the ink stain on her finger, and she looked at him. She saw the boy who started a fire in the rain. Mrs. Vane clicked her pen. "Do we have a deal?" Isla looked at the money. Then she looked at the grotto on the screen, her soul digitized. She thought about sitting in a glass office, feeding her dreams into a machine that would spit out a cheaper, soulless version. She looked at Julian. "Do you want to be safe?" she asked him softly, "or do you want to be real?" Julian looked at his father's name on the building directory visible through the glass wall. He reached for the contract. He picked it up. Mrs. Vane smiled. "Smart choice, Julian." Julian held the paper up. "The paper is quality," he noted. 100% cotton bond. Then slowly, deliberately, he tore it in half. The sound was loud in the silent room. R-R-R rip. He stacked the halves and tore them again. Mrs. Vane's smile vanished. "What are you doing?" Mr. Sterling gasped. "I am optimizing the waste," Julian said. He dropped the confetti onto the black marble table. "We quit," he said. Isla felt a bubble of laughter rise in her throat. She grabbed her bag. "We quit," she repeated. "And by the way, the velvet in the sample room, I am taking it. It is coming out of my final paycheck. You will never work in this town again." Mrs. Vane shouted, standing up. "We will crush you." "Good luck," Julian said, buttoning his jacket. "You have an algorithm. We have a vision." He offered his arm to Isla. "Shall we, Miss Torres?" "We shall, Mr. Thorne." They walked out. They didn't run, they strode, past the open-plan desks, past the shocked assistants, past the gray and the beige and the silence. They walked right out the front door. They burst out onto the sidewalk. The sun was shining. The Los Angeles sky was a blinding, perfect blue. The traffic hummed on the street. They stood there, breathing the smoggy, warm air. "We are unemployed," Isla said. "We are," Julian agreed. "I have $32,000 in student debt." "I have been cut off from my trust fund since I was 22, Julian said, "so I am currently worth about $4,000. Isla laughed. It sounded a bit hysterical. "We are idiots. We are," Julian said. He was smiling. He loosened his tie completely and pulled it off. He stuffed it into his pocket. "So," Isla said, looking at him, "what do we do now?" "Well," Julian said, "Magnus liked the design. He didn't sign the contract with Aura and Stone yet." Isla's eyes widened. "You think?" "I think he hired the artists, not the firm," Julian said. He pulled out his phone. "I grabbed his personal number from the contact sheet while Sterling was cleaning his glasses." "You sly fox," Isla grinned. Julian looked at the building behind them, the towering monolith of glass and steel. "We need an office," he said. "My garage has windows," Isla said, "and a very aggressive spider population." "It is perfect," Julian said. He looked at her, really looked at her. The sunlight caught the gold flakes of glitter that were still permanently embedded in her blazer. "Isla," he said. "Yeah, you have something on your face." Isla groaned. "Is it glitter? Is it ink?" Is it panic? No, he said. He stepped closer. Suddenly, a mechanical clunk-hiss sound came from the flower beds surrounding the plaza. PSHHHHHHCHKCHKCHK. The industrial sprinkler system roared to life. A wall of water blasted them. Isla shrieked. Cold water soaked her vintage blazer instantly. Julian's white shirt clung to his chest. It wasn't rain. It was recycled municipal water smelling faintly of chlorine. It was perfect. They stood there, dripping wet, surrounded by confused pedestrians. Julian didn't move away. He laughed, a loud, uninhibited laugh that shook his shoulders. Of course, he said, wiping water from his eyes. Why would it be easy? Isla looked at him. Wet, unemployed, broke, and laughing. He was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. Julian, she said. He stopped laughing. He looked at her, water dripping from his nose. Yeah, shut up and kiss me. I thought you would never ask. He grabbed her waist. She grabbed his wet lapels. He pulled her in. The kiss was messy. It tasted like chlorine and coffee and victory. It was chaotic. It was structural. It was everything. The sprinklers rotated, blasting them again, but they didn't break apart. Julian lifted her up, spinning her around on the wet pavement. Isla laughed against his mouth. Put me down, she squealed. People are watching. Let them watch, Julian said, setting her down but keeping his forehead pressed against hers. Let them see what real chemistry looks like. Not an algorithm, just us. Just us, Isla whispered. So Julian said, breathless, partner, she agreed. He took her hand. Now let's get out of here before security chases us off. They ran down the street hand in hand, leaving a trail of wet footprints on the dry pavement. Behind them, the Aura and Stone Tower loomed, tall and perfect and empty. Ahead of them was traffic and debt and a garage full of spiders. But as they ran, Isla looked at Julian and Julian looked at Isla. And for the first time in both of their lives, everything felt exactly, perfectly right.